All right, blessed love, give thanks for life. This is the African Liberation Network, and I'm the host, Honorable Prophet Daniel. And we're here again with the Honorable President John Hargrove of the Atlanta Division of the UNIA, Division 421. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, Brother Daniel. How you doing?
All is well, give thanks. Yes, we're here again for the Garveyite lessons. Tonight's topic is the social system. So we'll go into, the brother John will give us a brief description of what the social system means. This is coming from the Message to the People, the course on African philosophy written by the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And he'll give us a brief introduction to the topic, and then we'll, ask some questions and go in depth. Brother John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Daniel. So just to recap, our brothers and sisters that have been following this collection of courses or presentations, this is lesson 8. And as we said, through the first 7 lessons in Division 421, we considered that phase 1 of the development throughout the course of African philosophy. Phase 1 is an introspective view of development. So it's us looking, or Mr. Garvey holding up the mirror to ourselves and allowing us to critique and analyze ourselves and to improve ourselves. Lesson 8 is the first lesson where I tell our students that this is the first lesson where you are not necessarily going out into the neighborhood, but at least looking out of your front door of your home. So you're looking out into the rest of the world and starting with your immediate community. And Mr. Garvey titles lesson 8, The Social System. And he describes, and he talks about, he has 3 focuses in this lesson. 1 is society, 2 is politics, and 3 is, he titles it the approach to government, but how to deal with government. And in society, first things that Mr. Garvey says is society is an organization of mankind to safeguard and protect its own interests. He elaborates, he says, society is intended to maintain the greatest good for the greatest number, and that is always uppermost, so that in thought you may have to reform. But the concept is, once we go through the process of self-development through lessons 1 through 7, once we master intelligence, knowledge, universal knowledge, and how to get it. Intelligence, education, universal knowledge, and how to get it. Lesson 1. Lesson 2, leadership. Lesson 3, aims and objects of the UNIA ACL. Lesson 4, elocution. Lesson 5, Christ, or lesson 5 is God. Lesson 6, Christ, and lesson 7, character. Once we master those first lessons, we have an obligation to, this is our organizational endeavor. So now as we begin to organize, we want to find like-minded individuals so that we can create and expand this society in which we established in the first 7 lessons.
Thank you, Brother John, for that background information. First, we're using a different software for this program. I just want to make sure, is the sound good on your side, brother?
It's decent. There's a little echo.
Okay, I was wondering about that. Give me 1 second, brother. Let me see if I can fix that. What about now? Sound better?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it does.
All right, give thanks. Well, I'm glad we fixed that early.
I thought it
All
was my
right.
computer. That's why I've been muting. But
Okay, okay.
better now.
Well, pardon me to the viewers. Hopefully, everything he said was clear and understandable. But we'll go in depth and we'll make it clear for sure before the end of the program. You'll understand what the social system is. So yeah, brother. Social system is basically a society, correct?
The shortest, if you wanted to summarize the lesson, it is the creation of a society. It defines what a society is, what it's created for, and it also, in the further writings of political system and government, it teaches you how to protect your society and how to protect your society specifically in a foreign land. And that's one thing that we must all kind of understand is as you create revolutionary or monumental ideas, you're always going to be the minority until that idea becomes more popular and becomes approved by the powers that be. You will always be a minority inside of a society that's controlled by someone else. But even when you look at our religious leaders, um, Christ or Muhammad, they had to. They were the inceptions of new societies. Abraham, for the Jews, was an inception of a new society, and until their society became large enough, strong enough, powerful enough, they still had to maintain and abide by the rules of society in which they lived.
Okay, give thanks. So Marcus Garvey, would you say that Marcus Garvey's UNIA and ACL, African Communities League, was his attempt at building a social system, a society within a foreign land, as you've explained?
I would say yes, sir, 100%. And I can say that based upon the preamble of the UNI ACL Constitution, which in the very beginning it states that the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League is a social, friendly, humanitarian, charitable, educational, institutional, constructive, and expansive society. So, in the very first line of the preamble, Mr. Garvey and our ancestors defined the UNIA as a society. So yes, it is definitely a society. I would say so. Yes. But now, one thing to as you have further questions, and we've talked about this before. Obviously, we don't have the recording, but I'll repeat it for the audience's sake. These concepts of society, community, family, tribe, nation, government, these are all synonymous, and they are what Mr. Garvey articulates as different levels of organization. So, just because the preamble states a society does not mean we are not still a government. So, just in case that was a question.
I'll give thanks. Yes, I. So then we can get into what makes, what are the characteristics of a society? What is a society? What comprises a society? So that we can understand what fully Marcus Garvey was working to create through the UNIA and ACL.
Great question. And Mr. Garvey explains that in the first paragraph of this lesson. So I'll read the entire first paragraph as a whole, and I read part of it earlier. Mr. Garvey says the society is an organization of mankind to safeguard and protect its own interests. And then, how do you define a society? What are the characteristics of a society? Mr. Garvey says when society is organized and made evident by regulations, rules, and laws. Every member of that society must obey said rules, regulations, and laws. So, as we've talked about the development of character, the use of Christ as an example for Mr. Garvey, society is your statement to the world that you have a certain set of standards of what you believe is good and bad. And not only you, but other individuals that adhere to that society also abide by the same rules and regulations of what is right and wrong. Yourself, I think we talked about this previously. You are of the Bobo Ashanti faith, correct?
Yes.
So, in making that analogous to a society, there are rules and regulations within that faith. There are moral norms and what is considered acceptable and unacceptable within that society. So that is what defines a society. Is once you can establish what is acceptable and what is not as acceptable, and that is agreed upon by the organization. That's the creation of a society in itself.
All right. So maybe we could understand a little better. Like, all right, the UNIA is an international organization, an international association.
Yes, sir.
So just like the Bobo Ashanti Order is as well. So for the sake of the understanding for the viewers, for those who are not familiar with, because all right, generally one would probably think a society is something local, like everybody lives in the same
Hmm.
area, right? So
Hmm.
how can a society be existing in more than one territory, like under a bunch of different governments? Because to my knowledge, and maybe and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no one country that, say, the UNIA or any other, society could say is the like headquarters of like the UNIA. You know what I mean? So without there being like a territory or a landmass or something like that, how can a society exist without like a geographic location?
I see what you're saying. First of all, one thing, there are some territories um, that the UNI occupies. Um, there's no, but to your point, there is no sovereign land that the UNIA claims currently as UNIA territory. So you are correct in that aspect. To answer your question, the thought that comes to my mind is a speech that Mr. Garvey gave titled "Great Ideals Know No Nationality." But the concept is, if something is good um, to the point of being universally good, then you go beyond the bounds of what we consider jurisdiction or national boundaries. That's why I use examples such as religion, because these are society is not, you know, like I said, it's synonymous with a city, a town. It can be synonymous with geographical boundaries. The United States of America can be considered a society, but what you have to understand is there's a mentality to a society that outshines the geographical boundaries, and by that I mean the attitude, the personality, the behaviors, the mannerisms of what we consider America goes beyond the bounds of America. Um, so, what I'm trying to say is, um, basically, what I'm trying to say is, The beliefs that create the Society of the Universal Negro Improvement Association are just those universal beliefs. The society that we live under, or the Society of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, states, one, our first aim and objective is to create a universal confraternity. So just in the first aim of itself, of a goal of having a universal body of all melanated people, no matter where you are, that takes us beyond geographical boundaries. And anyone that agrees with that concept would be in part in agreement with that concept of a society. So that's when society goes beyond bounds, is when you have what I would consider universal principles.
Give thanks. And I mean, that's a really key concept to understand because, um, like, all right, now Africa, we understand Marcus Garvey's, well, I shouldn't say we understand. I understand. Maybe some people don't understand. But when you read Marcus Garvey's philosophy and opinions, you hear the rhetoric that Marcus Garvey often, highlights Africa as our homeland and puts emphasis on the importance of the freedom of Africa and it belonging to Black people. It's like, all right, now, but he at the same time that he, highlights Africa, he never said that he intended for all Black people to live in Africa.
Absolutely.
So even though Africa is like the, say, headquarters, if you will, for Black people, it doesn't necessarily mean that every Black person has to live in Africa to be considered an African.
Yes, sir.
So with that being said, now it's like, all right, as you were saying, the society, because within any society, you could have like, well, within any government, within any geographic location, like a country, continent, you have, several societies within that place, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, being that it's a universal Negro Improvement Association, a person can live anywhere and belong to this society, which is for the upliftment and the improvement of all Black people, regardless of where they live, as long as they can observe as you said, the morals, the principles of the association, and but even, I'll ask you, the membership now of this society, how does one become a member of the UNIA society? And what does that really mean to be a member of the society? How does that benefit a person?
Great question. Um, how does an individual become a member of this society? In our Constitution, Marcus Garvey laid it out. He said that there's only two types of members in the Universal Negro Improvement Association. One is your ordinary member, and those are members by race. So when you look at the red, black, and green flag, the very first at the top is red. That red is for the blood. Mr. Garvey teaches us it's the blood of our ancestors that makes us African. Not whether we were born on the continent or not, but the fact that we can trace our lineage back to the original man and woman on the continent of Africa. So it's not about the color of our skin, the language that we speak, or the nationality that we claim. It's our blood that binds us and makes us one. So anyone that acknowledges their African lineage back to the original man and woman by lineage and by blood, you are a member, an ordinary member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The second level is active members. Those are the dues paying members. Those are the ones that contribute to the government of the UNIA. But in essence, there are only two types. So many of it's almost as if, because you have to understand the concept, and that's as you were explaining it, that what came to my mind is biblical teachings. But in the beginning was the word. It's about the idea. It's the idea that creates the society. It's the agreement of an idea that creates society. So asking someone how they become part of the Universal Negro Improvement Association is synonymous with asking someone, how do you become an African or a Black person? You're born into it. And at a certain point, we all mature to a level of what we call activation, to where you take the responsibility for the future of your race. So,
Yeah, thanks. And then the second part of that, being a member, what are the benefits of not even becoming, but being a member of the said society?
great. Well, that's a good question. That's a layered question. Benefits of membership, according to the Constitution, is straightforward. Um, you are allowed to vote in our elections, and you're allowed to run for office. Is really what it comes down to. The third aspect, and probably I should have mentioned as the first aspect, active members are. I'm trying to word this right. Basically, they receive priority in regards to any benefits given by the organization. So if we live in Atlanta, there's a couple 100,000 brothers and sisters that live here, but we have 1,000 active members. Say we are to receive, back in COVID time, we got 2,000, 3,000, maybe 5,000 masks or whatever. Being an active member would prioritize you to receive any benefits of the organization first. And once active members are taken care of, if anything is remaining, that will be provided to ordinary members. But those are the constitutional benefits. But I would also argue there's other benefits to it. And at the end of the day, as Mr. Garvey said, the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. We are in a world of competition. And in that, it breeds cooperation and alliances amongst certain groups. And over time, we've learned that it's usually the weaker groups that end up having some of the strongest alliances, because we realize, and history will show that these groups are their survival is dependent upon their working together. So we have to realize, as melanated people, there are groups that are working against us. And being a part of the UNIA means that you are part of an organization of melanated people that are working to push back against those that are fighting against us, but also for the general benefit of your people at large. So economic cooperation, social cooperation, just developing ourselves within our own society. I don't know if I said political and economic. Political and economic would be the biggest ones, but the biggest benefits. The more we come together, the more we pool our resources together, the better we'll be in the long run.
All right. Yeah, I mean, and that's to me, that's all, everything to gain by being a member of the association. Is not like riches you're looking to gain, but to be stronger, to not be isolated, to have to belong to a society based on morals, principles, to have a government on your side.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
everything for the Black man, because where else is there a government that has your best interest, that doesn't have any colonial governments pulling the strings?
Yes.
So
And that's what it's about, is having an organization of your own people to speak for you. When we've really gotten brainwashed here in America, and we've become very dependent on others to speak for us. Anytime we have an issue, whether it's in court or police or politics, the our best advice that you're given is to go to another race and have them defend you. We have to develop ourselves and set an example for future generations such that we can depend upon ourselves at the end of the day.
For sure. Yeah. So, I would just ask, I guess, when somebody becomes a member, they like, all right, do you apply to become a member of the UNIA? You just reach out.
Another good question. Membership is very straightforward as of right now, as of today. We are an inclusive organization. So by that, it is very difficult to not qualify to be a member of the UNIA. So to be an official member of the UNIA, it really only takes two steps. One is to fill out. Well, I guess you'd have to reach out to an organization. So it's a third step. Reach out to an organization of the UNIA ACL. You can call me 678-631-9404. Atlanta Division 421 at gmail.com. Reach out to us, request an application, fill out the application. The application is, name, address, some, it's just like you're filling out a identification card or a driver's license. So pertinent information to identify yourself. And then the third step, so that makes you a registered member by filling out the application. Third step is just paying dues. Dues are $3 a month, and there's a $10 annual assessment. So it comes out to be $46 a month. For your first year, there's a $10 joining fee. So first year is $56. Every remaining year after that is $46. So those are the three steps to become an active member of the UNIA. And as I said, other members are ordinary members by race.
All right, give thanks. And that's, really a very small price to pay for a lot to gain, and I encourage, more of our brothers and sisters to become active members so there can be more divisions, because the closer it is, the easier it is for people to become, active members, because right now where I live, there is no, the closest I think to me is Atlanta, but that's kind of far away from me still. And, I would the point is the more members there are in different locations, the stronger the organization, the association becomes.
Yes, sir.
Because you have more, local divisions, so it makes it easier for people to see you and also easier for them to be active, be a part of it. So, just being that we're talking about the society and the importance of the society and the role that this particular society plays, I would just, include that little plug that, encouraging one's Black people to reach out and, see what you can do to become an active member of the UNIA, ACL, and strengthen the movement, Yeah. I don't really have too many more questions about the social system, I guess. It's just, we understand, we've already explained in previous episodes what the aims and objects are of the association, so what the association is about. And he explained to us what a society is, what is a social system. So it's really, I don't know, Brother John, if there's anything else you wanted to, highlight before we wrap it up.
Sure. As I said, there were three highlights of this lesson. One is what is a social system, the definition and the characteristics of a social system, and we kind of went over that pretty good in depth. So we know, and we've also demonstrated how the UNIA ACL is also a society. The other two sections are, well, the next section is called political pull. But it's basically, as I said, it starts to talk about how to protect your society. And the first thing Mr. Garvey says in regards to politics, Mr. Garvey says, politics is the science of government that protects those human rights that are not protected by law, as already established. Politics add to the laws or change the laws. You should pay politics. You should play politics to get good government. So that's part of our introduction. As I said, we are beginning to go outside of ourselves and outside of our immediate circle and interact with other groups. So when we think about, the Fraternal Order of Police, they are a society. What are our relations with that society? When we think about, Democrat, Republican Party, those are societies. What is the relationship between us and those societies? And when I say us, I mean the Universal Negro Improvement Association. I mean the government, the global government of melanated people. We have to, as Brother Daniel said, we have to consider, if something were to happen to us, what organizations can represent us? What is the closest organization to represent you? Is it, the local NAACP? Is it the local church? What is it? And the UNIA is 100%, controlled and operated and funded by Black people and have been since day one. And we are the only global government that can say that. So we have to have these relationships with these other societies. And the last thing Mr. Garvey talks about, he says, is your approach to government. So this is the things that the government should know about your organization, or the characteristics that should come to mind when someone in government hears the name of the UNIA ACL. Ms. Garvey says, always make your government know about your presence. Never hide from the government. Whenever possible, seek an interview with the government on behalf of the people you lead. So again, it's about the development of a nation within a nation. So this approach to government is making it clear that there is a distinction and a delineation between who we are and who we are working with. But although both of these societies can claim to represent our people, again, one society was created by melanated African ancestors in 1920, established in 1920, originally created in 1914. And the other one is the government of the United States of America. And we have to ask ourselves, which of these two bodies and societies would better represent, better provide equality for us as Africans. So that's all I got, brother Daniel. The creation of a society and how to be political for the efforts of respecting or protecting our societies.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of a big part of this conversation being how, when it comes to having a government within a government, considering the situation Black people are in, that we're in the world, being that we, as you don't have as strong realistically, our military strength is not as strong as that of, like, say, European nations, America, bigger, more developed nations in general. So how can you then defend yourself when you create? Because, all right, back to this idea of a society with a nation within a nation. Black people in the past have created societies where they've owned property, they've shared, morals, values, etc., and that's what the societies were established upon. And they, don't, most of them that I've seen don't really exist anymore. You have religious organizations which I guess you could consider societies. Um, but outside of that, when brothers and sisters organize on political um, grounds, like having a political stance, generally they are met with violence by the American government. So
Hmm.
how does the UNIA remain autonomous through over the years since the early 19 the teens all the way up until now, over 100 years now?
That's a loaded question. Because that brings to mind, um, it brings to mind some information outside of the course of African philosophy. But at in instance, he does talk about it here as well. Um, One thing we have to understand as Garveyites in the UNIA is what is our fight and what are we fighting for? And Garvey makes it clear that we are not fighting. We are we are not fighting to establish a nation within these boundaries. We are fighting to establish a nation in Africa. So there is no competition between the United States and the UNIA. Mr. Garvey says in the lesson, he says, always impress upon the government that your movement is not to controvert the established order of government, but that your people seek a homeland in Africa, which is not to be achieved by revolution in the country in which you domicile as a citizen, but if possible, it is to be achieved by the cooperation of the government. So, um, we're not competing with the United States. And another thing, as I said, a nation within a nation, our people are a part of the United States government. At the end of the lesson, Mr. Garvey says, when you riot against your government, you are rioting against yourself because the government cannot exist without you. So it's those two aspects that we use to protect ourselves. Is one, our fight. This is not our fight. Our fight is to establish a nation in Africa. And number two, we know that the government is comprised of our people. So why would we, fight or riot against ourselves? Mr. Garvey teaches us in the next upcoming lesson, and even in this lesson, a little bit in politics. But there's a way to handle ourselves within government and within other nations. So and again, as we said last week, but we lost it. The title of the next lesson is diplomacy. So it gives more specific details of one thing that comes to mind is Fred Hampton said that politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed. So we try to stay on the without bloodshed aspect of these debates and discussions.
Give thanks, brother. And I mean, yeah, that's crucial. I think that part there is very important to understand, so that we don't find ourselves in that position, or even appear to be in that position, that we're trying to take over the government or create some new type of government in America or something like that.
Yes,
And to
sir.
understand that we do have a land that's ours, that we can govern the way we want to govern, and we don't have to compete with anybody for their thing that they establish. we
Yes, sir.
just we just here we just here by default, kind of, and we working to secure something better for ourselves.
Absolutely.
um yeah, so give thanks, my brother. That was very insightful, and helped me, and I'm sure it helped the viewers to understand. And I encourage, the viewers to tune in to the next episode as we go into diplomacy, so we can understand better how to, carry ourselves as we represent the UNIA, as we represent Black people. Because
Yes,
even if you're not an active member, if you're just an ordinary member, you still represent the UNIA because you're Black. You
Yes,
represent
sir.
your ancestors, so it's
Yes, sir.
important to know how to carry ourselves, how to have good character, and
Mm.
you know, yeah, know that you're not just you alone. You do represent something greater than yourself, whether you want to accept that or not. You know, so yeah, thanks again to everyone for tuning in. I would love for the brother John, President John, to give us again the information for anyone who's interested in reaching out to the UNIA
Yes,
to
sir.
either join a local or to even inquire about establishing one wherever you are, if you have enough members or potential members in your area, brother John.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother Daniel. And that's thank you, thank you, thank you. That's really what this is about. Um, Continuing the work of Mr. Garvey is continuing to build the UNIA ACL. Years after his transition. So if you that is the Mr. Garvey says that it's three ways in which we seek support from our people. One is moral support, so just encouragement, liking the video, sharing the video, just giving thumbs up, and commenting good things. That's number one. Number two is you know men and women actually putting in the work, serving in office, doing the work that Brother Daniel is doing right now, sharing these videos, sharing this information. And the third way is financial. So making contributions to assist these movements and make sure they continue for years to come. To support us locally in Atlanta, 678-631-9404. You can make a donation to our Cash App, $UNIA 421 Fund. And you can reach us on email, Atlanta Division 421 at gmail.com. We also on social media, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can also reach our parent body, our leadership, the office of a president general. That was the office that Mr. Garvey held in his time. We are currently under the leadership of the Honorable Michael R. Duncan, who is the 10th successor and the 11th president general of the UNIA. But the parent body leadership webpage is unia-aclgovernment.com. And you can make a donation to the parent body, $UNIA ACL. Thank you, Brother Daniel.
Thank you, Brother John. Thank you for being with us. Thanks for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you continue to, share. Because reading the book on our own is one thing. We're getting the direct commentary and insight from you, specifically from you, is really helpful to me because I'm reading this book as like every day I read a little bit of the message to the people every morning. And so I understand it on my level, but then when we talk, I get a whole different, depth of understanding. And I appreciate you. And I'm sure that the audience, the listening audience, I would encourage them all to get a copy of the book. If you don't have a copy, reach out and we can help you get a copy of it. Yeah. Comment under the video and let me know. Send me your email address. Yeah. Message to the people, the Course of African Philosophy.
Yes,
Look
sir.
for it online. I'm sure it can be found. It's not a secret. So
Yes, sir.
yeah. And yeah, so as I said, I'm reading the book every day, and this helps me to understand it on a more in-depth level. So hopefully it's also helping you. And if you haven't got the book, get the book so you can read along and you can go back to the first lesson, the first episode, and follow all the way up until now because we're just going lesson by lesson by lesson. And we'll eventually do the whole book. So it'll just make it that much more simplified, that much more clear for anybody who's really interested in understanding what Marcus Garvey was all about, what his intentions were for Black people, how he wanted us to carry ourselves. And it's not just about what he wants, because it's not about, say, the personality or anything like that of Marcus Garvey. It's about the principles, because as he said, the principles, the ideas is what really uplifts us, is what makes us better people. If we take it to heart, if we internalize it and can begin to improve ourselves, because this is a Universal Improvement Association, Negro Improvement Association, and you can improve yourself And if you improve yourself and become a member of the association, then you can add a strength to the, to the association, because a society is made up of individuals, right? If
Yes, sir.
every individual is improving themselves, then they can also improve others outside of the association. So it's about not only just becoming a member and being a part of the society, but doing the personal improvement, improving your character and the way you carry yourself and the way you behave. That also makes the thing stronger
Mm,
to represent in a positive way. So
sir.
anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. But thank you, Brother John, again. Thank you to all the viewers. Thanks for being with us on the African Liberation Network, and we look forward. You got something, brother?
Um, just I encourage everyone to stay tuned to the next lesson. Lesson 9, diplomacy. I would argue is one of the most misunderstood and misused lessons. So definitely tune in for lesson 9.
Thank you, brother. Well, I'll be there, and then we look forward to seeing you all. So until next time, this is the African Liberation Network. I'm the host, Honorable Prophet Daniel. Thank you for our guest, the Honorable President John Hargrove of the UNIA Division 421 in Atlanta. And thank you to all of you. We'll see you next time. Blessed love.
Peace, brother. Race first.
Race first.